professional show, and there's everybody now. Hello. Hi, we're doing stuff behind the scenes before we even start here. So tell me this, with the changes at Civic Media, are you still on Saturdays at noon?
Saturdays and Sundays.
Saturdays and Sundays. Okay. And YouTube and Spotify and anything else? I mean, the Chicago and Atlanta things, right?
Yep, Chicago, Atlanta, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts, all those places, and more coming.
More coming?
I know, it's so exciting.
Wow.
This whole getting over the concussion thing is like, all of a sudden, it's like waking up. I feel like Rip Van Winkle.
I don't know that I'd recommend this to other folks, but if it worked for you, I guess driving in front of a semi is one way to go about, having more energy.
Not recommended. Not recommended.
No,
but
no.
like having been living under this heavy blanket of like not being able to think well, all of a sudden last night I was watching the halftime show and like words started coming back to me, and I said to my son, I'm finding those words, the words that I was looking for. They're popping into my head. It was such an exciting moment.
That's great. All right.
Yeah, he was like, "Great, are you going to talk more?"
More? All right, let's get this show on the road. And you're saying, hey, Pat, why do you still make it look like a show? Because someday I might be doing a show again, and, I want to at least look like I still haven't become completely half-assed as to how I handle controls and things like that. So,
Pat, this is cool. Doing it this way is in. This is the vibe.
Oh, okay. Very rough. Well, this is rough, kids. Hi, welcome to another beautiful morning up north. I'm Pat Kreitlow here on Lake Wissota in Chippewa Falls, joined by my friend Dr. Kristin Lyerly.
Good morning.
So many places to start today. First off, you might have heard me. Oh, wait, I've got Kristin's banner up there, so there you go. We'll get into her show in just a bit. Anyway, we had a last minute scheduling change for a guest. That guest will be with us, but will be rescheduled. So we'll just get to prattle amongst ourselves today, and we are loaded with guests for the rest of the week. In fact, I might even have a visual illustration of them.
You were busy this weekend.
Oh my goodness. I'm like, hey, if I'm going to work on these graphic designs, I may as well share them, right? So we have count them, three candidates for governor coming up this week. Some would say 4, but no, Kristin's not an official candidate for governor yet.
I'll be the ceremonial candidate for governor.
There you go. She plays the role of one of these things is not like the others on the screen here, because tomorrow, live at 9, Joel Brennan, candidate for governor. Wednesday at 9, Missy Hughes, candidate for governor. Thursday, David Crawley, candidate for governor, Milwaukee County Executive. And then Kristin will be back on Friday as well. So hope you all tune in. It's nice to have an outlet like this where candidates for governor can come talk to you and answer some of your questions that you might have. So feel free to send those in.
It's really cool too, I think, at this point in the election cycle, because there are so many good options and people just don't know. You look at the pictures and maybe you've heard some of these names, but to be able to dig in a little bit and hear them speak and get to know them a little bit is really valuable.
Yeah. So again, you can either put something in the comment section or send an email and let us know, what do you want to hear all the candidates talk about? We're happy to do that. Let's see, in Sunday's newsletter and now on the website, there are links to excerpts of my videos, my interviews with 3 other candidates for the 7th Congressional District. We talked to Fred Clark here live on this program. I've talked to Chris Armstrong from St. Croix County, Ginger Murray, originally from Forest County, now lives down in New Lisbon. All good candidates for the 7th Congressional District seat, and maybe flipping that back after all these years of Republicans holding it, from Sean Duffy to Tom Tiffany. Maybe we'd like to get somebody who would actually represent the district this time. One of those folks might come in handy. So again, from the Sunday newsletter or now on our website, you can go get some video clips of that. All right, where do we start? The halftime show, the game that wasn't much of a game, and again,
it got a little exciting toward the end.
Sorry, there, Vikings fans. Sam Darnold.
I know.
I mean, it's just really, it's got to sting, And of
Yeah.
course, we've got the Olympics as well that we can talk about. But yeah, they're really the game. Look, if you like defensive battles, both the defenses, put on quite a show. But beyond that, I mean, what, 5 field goals and a couple of touchdowns. So let's get to the halftime show. And some would say, oh, the halftime shows? No, just the halftime show, because the White Guys Alternative Show. Here's the thing I like about my job, Kristen. Perspective. We get to put things in perspective, because without someone offering perspective, I've seen some posts going, wow, the White Guys Alternative Halftime Show got 6 million viewers. What a big loss that is for the NFL. 6 million viewers. Here's the perspective. That's maybe half as many people as watched the Puppy Bowl. And the NFL, the Super Bowl got over 120 million viewers. And so the 6 million that really wanted to hear Kid Rock, as opposed to a much more wholesome, much more American with a capital A halftime show. I mean, that's your right. But Kristen, that was a fun show. Bad Bunny and Friends.
It was joyful. And I loved everything about it. I loved looking at the comments afterwards when the Green Bay TV stations were asking people for their opinions, and most of the comments were really positive. And this was not the case last year with the Kendrick Lamar halftime show. So I feel like we are coalescing around this sense of community. And there are all of these little nuggets, like the wedding that happened in the middle of the show was a real
An
wedding.
actual wedding, yes.
Yes. And the little kid who was sleeping on the chairs that Bad Bunny went over and woke up. A friend of mine who's out in Portland, and she's Latina, she said, this actually happens. Little kids sleep on chairs at weddings. And there were like all of these little moments. And even friends of mine who are immigrants but not of Hispanic origin were saying they were crying because they felt so included, because this is America. It's not the United States,
This
it's
is
America.
Yes, and I love that roll call at the end, calling out every country in North America, Central America, South America, Latin America, saying America is more than the United States. We are all neighbors here in this Western Hemisphere, and why don't we be a bit more neighborly toward one another? It gave a vibe like I was back, living on an island, back visiting Puerto Rico, with all the wonderful people. And one of the things I really took away from living in the Caribbean and all my other trips down there, the people who sing while they're on the job. They just sing to themselves, but out loud while they're doing their thing. I mean, to do your work and to have a little song at the same time is something that you just don't have here, where we're just going about our work, our doldrums, blah, 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 blah. They're singing while they do their work.
They're singing.
I love that.
And Bad Bunny's tip of the hat to his culture. Yeah. And like handing his Grammy to that little boy who was not Liam Ramos,
not
by the way.
Liam. No.
No.
I appreciate the sentiment, but no, that was not him.
But it was like handing it to his to the future, to his past, recognizing that that's what it's all about, is creating that legacy and then seeing where the next generation goes with it. And Pat, that's what you're doing with this show. I mean, to make a really broad analogy, we can't be locked into what we had, because that is part of our history. But we've got to think about what the future holds for us and where are the opportunities and the possibilities. And I felt like that was the halftime show.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. It was very enjoyable. I didn't have to know all the words. Trust me, 60 years later, I'm still learning the lyrics to songs I've been hearing for 60 years and never knew what that line was. I mean, there's a whole cottage industry out of music lyrics that you've been getting wrong all these years and are finally discovering. So don't worry. And did you see who else was watching the halftime show, the Bad Bunny show?
No.
Everybody at Mar-a-Lago. There's a photo there of how it was on the big screen, and there's Trump and everybody in the ballroom watching it. So, of course, they can criticize it, of course, but they were all watching it. They weren't watching the other one, which, by the way, wasn't on all the places they said it was going to be on because of last-minute licensing issues. So
Yeah. And their comments, the negative comments, are just attacks. They're not actual critiques of the show. They don't really carry any weight. It's just the classic ugliness that we've been seeing. So, just like Wonder Woman with her bracelets, pew, 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 just fend it off. Don't pay attention to the trolls and just keep moving forward.
And move on. Yeah, exactly. Have you watched much of the Olympics so far?
I have not, but I really am feeling a little Lindsey Vonn
I was going to say that. I mean, your soul sister here, Lindsey Vonn. I mean, by totally different circumstances. Yours have been through biking and driving, and hers has been, I'm retired. I'm not retired. here's a lesson, everybody. When you retire from something, just go ahead and do that. Find something else to do. Because I, I don't want to take anything away from her talent or her gumption or anything else, but I can't help but thinking of somebody who had to stay home and not get a spot on that team because Lindsey Vonn wanted to compete, who, by the way, world-class athlete. Maybe she could have won, but it still feels like somebody didn't get a chance because of what became more of a vanity project than winning something for Team USA.
That is true, but to be fair, it's not like she just filled a slot at the last minute. She
right. She
worked
did earn
for it, and
I
then
totally
it
get
was
that.
that last run where she tore her ACL, and you could see in the press conference when she was saying, "I'm going to do this. I've been training for it," and I was looking at her face, and I was thinking, "This is not going to go well." But
Yeah.
I definitely didn't think it was going to end up this way. So yeah,
No,
heartbroken for her.
Yeah. But and then again, somebody else, another American, won the gold.
Yeah,
But you'd be hard pressed to name her because all
I
the attention was
know.
on Lindsay. So, and
I
then
know.
there's this guy, and I wish him all the best. But my God, I'll be happy if I never hear the words quad god again, because apparently nobody wants to say his name, Ilya Malinin. It's always got to be quad god,
I've
and
not
so.
heard that.
Oh my God, every other sentence about this guy from the TV announcers, it's all you heard all weekend. I'm like, please stop, just say his name, his quads are beautiful. Don't get me wrong. His technical stuff is through the roof. However, in two different programs, I felt like the Japanese skater was a bit more artistic. And I was at my mom's over the weekend, and we went back and forth, and she was all about, no, Malinen's was the best. I'm like, yeah, technically he was, but the Japanese skaters, the one actually topped Ilya on Saturday, but then came in second on Sunday. This other Japanese skater who is just heartbroken and just breaks down in tears and has nothing to be ashamed of. I mean, these were all beautiful routines.
I love how we all become experts
I
in the
love
Olympics.
that. My mom and I were experts in snowboarding and luge by the time this was all done.
The bobsledders could have used some experts.
Yeah, they could have. And that part, again, I admire them, but it kills me a little that you do these things since you're like 4 years old and you train like never before. And in one split second, all of that just falls apart. Talk about high risk, high reward,
Yeah, that's life.
It is. That's the ultimate. But so far, it's been great. The women's hockey team kicking ass. That's been fun to see. The men will start things on Thursday, and so I've really enjoyed this so far. The opening ceremonies were okay. I don't know if you saw those on Friday night, but I did like that they were in 4 different venues. That was cool to see athletes walking in 4 different towns around Italy. And I really want to go to all 4 of those towns like next week. They look so gorgeous.
Have you ever been to the Olympics?
Oh, no. And I feel like it's not that I'm not against big crowds, but if I could avoid it, if I could go to these cities next year and see it rather than go to the Olympics itself, I'd be just as happy, if not more so.
But it's just so spread out that you think that it's just massive mobs everywhere, but that's not actually how it is. So I was at the Olympics in Atlanta in '96, and there are so many different venues that, I mean, yeah, it's like a sporting event in all these different places. But, the spirit, the languages, we got stuck on a train and just talking with some German folks about what their experience was. It's just really an incredible atmosphere. Highly recommended.
Oh, nice. Okay. Well, someday. I have, like I said, I've gone to places like either right before or right after they've had Olympics, and you still kind of get some of that, vibe, except Montreal. When we went to Montreal for Sherry at a conference, an OBGYN conference there, and this would have been 1994, 95, something like that. And the Montreal Olympics were 1976. And they're still in debt from that Olympics. They're like the poster child of, from that point on, everybody was like much more careful about how they financed the construction, repurposed the stadiums and all that stuff. And it was cool to see, but it was almost like an elephant graveyard of some of the places where the grass has just grown up all around it, and they haven't used those sites for anything else since. And I'm sure, whereas I'd been to Sydney the year before the 2000 Olympics, and they were just all over this. Like, oh, yep, as soon as the Olympics are over, that becomes multifamily housing, and that becomes a shopping center, and this goes, to public transportation. And it's if you're into urban planning, and it's one of my weird quirks. I love urban planning. I'm like, that would be that snort over there. A snort for urban planning, everybody. I think it's just really cool. We're going to use this part of the city for this now and this later.
Think about, though, how events like that have changed, because sporting events, we didn't have the TV, we didn't have the ability to broadcast all over the world the way we do now. So in 1976, things were very different than they were in 1996 than they are in 2026. So I get that.
My mom was saying, I miss Jim McKay. Jim McKay did such a great job. And yeah, Jim McKay was the voice of the Olympics, growing up for me as well. But that takes nothing away from Bob Costas, who did it for several Olympics. And now, Mike Tirico and others are doing a wonderful job of it as well. But I would like them to show more old Olympic clips. I really would. And that's not just an old guy thing, but I'd love if in the midst of all, let's pick figure skating and all that, go ahead and take one of those Dorothy Hamill routines and run that so that you can just compare, like, this is what a gold medal performance looked like, in 1976 or whatever. I thought that'd be cool. I want to see more of that. I want to see a full ski race or something like that. And then I know you've heard this one, put a normie in the Olympics. And I always pick the swimming pool. Like, you've got 8 lanes in the swimming pool, put 7 Olympic athletes, then put a normal guy or gal in lane 8, just for comparative purposes. This is how a normal person swims. Now do that on the ski slopes. Okay, here go all these fast skiers, and now let's put a normal person on skis and watch them
Pizza, French fries. Pizza, French fries.
Oh, many fun things that we can do with the Olympics. So, well, we've got another week and a half of that to go on. Let's get to the fun and the education. That is the Dr. Kristin Lyerly show. And you had a name. You had a get this past weekend.
I had such a get. Liz Winstead, co-creator of The Daily Show. She's a co-founder of Air America. She discovered Rachel Maddow. She joined me for the show, and we talked about, so much. She's a blast. And she's so funny, but she's also so serious. She also founded Abortion Access Front, which is an organization that normalizes talking about reproductive rights and abortion and gets out there and supports abortion providers. And man, the work that she does is just visionary and so incredibly important. And she's based in Minneapolis. So we brought that into the conversation. We talked about her new podcast, Feminist Buzzkills. When I left that conversation, I was like, yeah, Liz Winstead, baby. So yeah, I'm president of her fan club now.
That's great.
Yeah.
And do you know what you got next weekend?
Yeah, Chris Taylor. She's running for Wisconsin State Supreme Court, and she's absolutely brilliant. And when I approached that conversation, I don't know about you, Pat, but she's running as in a nonpartisan race as a former Democrat who served in the state assembly. So how do you do that? Like, how do you set that partisanship aside to serve in this kind of a role? And that was a really important part of our conversation that she answered beautifully, gracefully, totally appropriately. I'm in. I'm a fan.
Right. So go look for that next weekend, wherever you find the Dr. Kristin Lyerly show, YouTube, Spotify, Civic Media, stations in Chicago, Atlanta, maybe more coming.
Maybe. We'll see.
Maybe. All right. We'll see about that. And I did note on Friday as well, but I'll note again for the, to all of our friends who, at Civic Media, where they've gone through changes. And again, we're rooting for everybody there. We want this thing we want that little project to work, but things are in flux right now. But Kristin's show is still there, Saturdays and Sundays at noon. So tune in to that.
Yes.
Let's see. You also, speaking of guests, now this isn't for your show necessarily, but you're part of the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, ACOG, and ACOG has a big annual meeting in Washington, D.C. coming up in a few weeks here. And you got another get you're so happy about.
Oh my gosh, this was the hardest secret in the world to keep. We've got our big annual clinical and scientific meeting coming up in May, and our keynote speaker is Michelle Obama. I know, it's going to be so great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Sherry's already looking forward to it as well. It's going to be a great conference. It's going to be a great speaker.
Good morning, Tammy.
There you go. See, thanks for tuning in. Good to have you here. So you've got that coming up. I don't have a lot of other news stories to share because, again, it was more of a weekend for Super Bowl and the Olympics and other things like that. I took note of, and I'll work more on it later. But I would point people toward Eric Gunn's excellent story in the Wisconsin Examiner, all about how the Evers administration has now taken on the largest child labor case on record against a major chain of more than 100 Burger King restaurants around Wisconsin, where more than 600 Wisconsin teens are going to be owed back pay for all of the ways that they, misclassified teen workers, underpaid them. I've got a grandson who's a teenager and has worked in the fast food industry. And I know other people who, they get in there, and as these kids, they don't, they're not going to stand up for their rights. They don't even know what their rights are. And so when they're told you're going to work even more hours, or you're going to take on more roles, but we can't pay you the higher wage yet. I mean, it's just, it ought to be a crime to take advantage of teen workers. And guess what? It is, but not everybody takes it seriously. So for the Evers Department of Workforce Development to take this seriously and go after a serial violator, you just got to tip your cap.
Yeah, I mean, that's who Tony Evers is, right? He is everybody's favorite grandpa. I think we're really going to appreciate him all that much more when he's not in office, because he sets such a solid foundation for so many of us and so many of these issues that we don't hear about necessarily. But I mean, I worked at Hardee's when I was a kid, and if I was told to stay, I would stay, because you obeyed, I don't obey like that anymore, but at the time, when you just don't know any better. So yeah, right. We have to stick up for vulnerable populations like young kids like this.
Exactly. So again, Eric Gunn's got a great story at wisconsinexaminer.com. I want to do a little history lesson stuff before we run away.
Yes, I love the history lesson stuff.
You like Carole King?
I do.
I love Carole King. And I've already put these links up in the comment sections. I kind of forgot to last week. Sorry, folks. Carole King is 84 years old today.
What?
Manhattan born and raised. And I mentioned her just a week ago, how she was at the Grammys and was talking to, who was it? One of the new artists. I don't think it was Sabrina Carpenter, but talked about writing songs with her. And how thrilled they were that Carole King would want to, still write songs with some of the young songwriters. So,
legendary.
Yeah, Will You Love Me Tomorrow, Take Good Care of My Baby, The Locomotion, and of course the whole Tapestry album. And I put a link to the whole Tapestry album off of Carole King's YouTube page there.
And just think about what it was like for her back in the day when she was the only woman really who was out there writing these songs in this tough industry. Like, brilliant.
I mean, that's as pioneer as it gets. So she is 84 today. Country singer Travis Tritt is 64 years old today. Not a stellar day in the history books. On this day in 1950, Wisconsin Senator Joseph McCarthy delivered a speech in which he claimed to have a list of members of the Communist Party working in the U.S. State Department. It's funny how the more things change, the more they stay the same. And we still have assholes like that in government today.
I'd like to report that Hamilton is playing at the PAC in Appleton right now.
Nice.
And there was a moment in the show where the resistance was brought up, and it was very exciting, and the crowd cheered. And the irony was not lost on me that this all occurred just miles away from where Joe McCarthy was born. So I think we're going to be okay.
Let's embrace the good parts of history, because there are the parts that aren't so good, like how 5 years ago today, the second impeachment trial of Donald Trump began in the wake of the January 6th attack. A conviction would have meant that Trump could no longer run for office, but out of 50 Republican U.S. senators, 43 of them voted for acquittal. And that is a stain on their lives that can never be erased, that they've allowed all of this to take place again. On a little bit lighter note here, 1964 on this day. So keep in mind, February 9th, 1964. So the president of the United States had been assassinated only like 10 weeks earlier. The nation was in a funk. It's in the middle of winter. And on Ed Sullivan's show that Sunday, February 9th, come the Beatles. And nothing was the same after that. And I've got a clip to that first appearance on Ed Sullivan and the screaming. There's so much screaming because they'd never heard anybody like that before.
That was what got me through my injury. was like watching the Beatles and seeing the enthusiasm and how they all hung together and how exciting it was, how it lifted up the whole nation. You're exactly right. We needed that as a country.
And I've heard both Billy Joel and Bruce Springsteen, and I know there have been others. Again, there was a record 73 million Americans watched the Ed Sullivan Show that night. And Billy Joel and Bruce Springsteen and others, as very young people, saw that and said, this is what I want to do. And they did. Very inspiring. Exactly.
Tell you something.
So here's my little video nugget of the day.
I can be John, you can be Paul, or the other way around.
I thought I was your Yoko. I don't know.
Yeah, you're the Yoko type.
Yeah, thanks. Right. Here's my little video nugget for the day. On this day in 1974, you see in this clip the beginning of the Midnight Special. Now, that's Wolfman Jack and all the latest rock and roll acts. And instead, there's an orchestra, and the strings come up and the French horn, and conducting the orchestra is Barry White, doing Love's theme with the Love Unlimited Orchestra as the cold open to the Midnight Special this day 52 years ago. Go watch that. It's a trip watching Barry White in this very 70s, not quite a jumpsuit, and again the hairstyle and Barry White being Barry White. It's just an excellent clip. You got to watch for that. So
haven't seen it. I'll look for it.
You will.
You'll put a link in the show notes, right?
I already did. I remembered it this time. Yay me. Hey, speaking of fast food and other jobs here, here's a question of the week from the newsletter. It's about the minimum wage. It's been stuck at $7.25 an hour since July 24th, 2009. Have prices stayed static since January or July of 2009? I don't think so. But there's others that argue that, well, $7.25, that's meant to be a starter wage for high school kids who are putting cheeseburgers together. That's nowhere near the reality. In today's job market, at least 25% of workers earning minimum wage have dependent children. And the average age of a minimum wage worker is 35. And 88%, nearly 90% of minimum wage workers are over the age of 20. These are not starter jobs. Minimum wage, I've always said, is simply a polite term for the lowest some employers can legally get away with paying their workers, and they would gladly pay less if they could get away with it because they don't give a rat's ass about you. Or maybe you disagree. That's why the question of the week is, should Wisconsin move beyond the 21 states whose minimum wage is still stuck at $7.25 an hour? And so option A is no. Leave it as is. If someone is stuck in a job that pays so little, it's on them to find something better. Option B is raise it for everyone, but go back to what we had prior to 1996, where there was a lower minimum wage for teens compared to people over the age of 18 or 19. Option C is we don't need to split it up, just raise the minimum wage for everyone and put it in the $10 to $15 an hour range. And then finally, option D is raise it to an actual living wage of $15 or more an hour. And if you head over to our website, upnorthnewswi.com, look up the question of the week, and you can vote there. Kristin, what are your thoughts on it?
I don't think it matters whether you're over or under 18. You still need to be able to earn money. I'm thinking about my young kids who are trying to earn money for college. College is so much more expensive. Everything is so much more expensive. So I don't know. For me personally, $15 an hour seems about right. And the argument that the market will make those adjustments, well, yeah, the market's not doing a great job with healthcare and so many other things as well. So
it's not. Again, there's people that think that the market magically cures all, but it only does if there's, a responsible government putting guardrails to avoid the excesses, like paying overly low wages. So we need that. Let's see, there's also our Do Something calendar for civic engagement, and you can find that on the website as well. Let me tell you about two items on there, and they're both on Wednesday. The Winnebago County Democrats have a spaghetti dinner with two special guests, Kelda Royce and David Crowley. That'll be in Oshkosh starting at 5 o'clock on on Wednesday, the 11th. And again, go to the Winnebago County Democrats site for more. And also on Wednesday, the Wisconsin Public Education Network has Referendum Basics, Building a Winning Team to Support Local Schools. That's a virtual event Wednesday starting at 6:30 p.m., how to build a referendum team and the basics of building a winning campaign. And Kristin's all about that, helping people build campaigns from the ground up in your part of the state.
How crazy is it that we have to teach people to put together referendums so they can fund their public schools in their communities? Like, we have to actually campaign to be able to send our kids to school. That's where we're at right now.
That is exactly where we're at right now. So, okay, I got to go do my work over at Up North News. And so before I do that, one more reminder that tomorrow we will be talking to Joel Brennan live at 9 a.m., Missy Hughes live at 9 a.m. on Wednesday. David Crawley will join me live at 9 a.m. on Thursday. And then, Kristin, I hope you'll come back on Friday if we haven't bored you or wore you out yet. So how are you coming? I saw you dancing on crutches in a video this weekend, I believe.
I was. Well, I mean, it was Bad Bunny, so I couldn't not.
Are you still on like crutches full time and stuff? Or?
I am, but hopefully tomorrow I'll be able to actually put some weight on my foot. So I'm like,
okay.
You know how when you've got those little, those moments where you're like, I'm working toward tomorrow and I'm going to have a celebration for my foot.
Okay, Lindsay, all I'm asking is that you be patient and take it easy. Yes, we want
Dad.
that full recovery. You're welcome. You know, we actually had that conversation last weekend around here. We're talking about like rebranding some things, and they were like, well, what do we want to do with the weekend newsletter? And we're talking about, it's a new year campaign. We just changed our color scheme at Up North News and logo, so they're talking about that. And they're like, some of the conversation was like, well, it's like having you at a supper club, and you're just explaining things to people. And somebody said, yeah, it's like having drinks with Dad. I like the way that Pat just breaks down things, and that's when I went with Pat Kreitlow has a breakdown. I like that. That could be our new series,
No.
Drinks with Dad while Pat has a breakdown and explains things. I don't know. We'll try something. Anyway, all right. We're going to get ourselves out of here. Thank you, Kristin. I'll see you on Friday.
Can't wait. Thanks for having me.
All right. We'll see you next time tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. for another beautiful morning up north.